Hi, friends. So we are entering eclipse season, and the very first one is coming up on September 7th. We have a big full moon in Pisces that is also an eclipse. And it is highlighting how we know what we know. And there are three different ways that we know what we know in the human design system. And they're probably not what you think. And yet, when we reject different aspects of ourselves and how we know what we know, we get divided against ourselves. We get split. We get fractured. And what we want to do is become more whole. And as we're moving more and more into unity consciousness, really wanting to get a felt sense, a deep inner embodied sense of knowing that we are connected inside of ourselves, with each other, with the living world, and with the cosmos, we want to be identifying the places that we actually foster conflict inside of ourselves, where we reject parts of us, we dismiss parts of us, and this really disempowers us. So that's what we're going to be exploring today as we're diving into this Pisces full moon. Let's go ahead and dive in. How we know what we know is one of the most important things that we can even be exploring these days, right? And this eclipse full moon is going to be highlighting some of the tensions that we have in that. And there's always tensions inside of every single human design chart, whether that's for a person or it's for like an event like this. And so there's nothing wrong, and there's nothing like that we have to be concerned about, so much as we want to go, okay, how do we work with this tension? Because tension is here to help us to grow. It's to help us to move beyond where we already are, to help us move out of our comfort zone into really the realm of growth, the realm of development, the realm of potential. And so that's what this full moon eclipse is going to be bringing us. And I want to let you know, in September, we're going to be doing a best choices challenge, which is all about how do we know what we know? How do we make our best choices? How do we make our best decisions? Because the way that we've been taught in the overculture is not at all the way that human design teaches us to make our best choices and to make our best decisions. This lives in the realm of our authorities in human design, and all authorities are intuitive. None of them are logical or rational or analytical. And this is one of the reasons that for some people, it's hard to access them or to really understand them, because we tend to be really left brain dominant. So if you want to learn how to really develop your inner knowing, your inner sense, and your human design authority so that you can make the best choices for you, I encourage you to join us for that. The link to get on the wait list is down in the description, and it's happening on the 22nd to the 26th of September. So go ahead and join the wait list, and then you'll be among the first to find out what this challenge is all about. So I mentioned creative tension in the chart. This is how I choose to embrace the way that the chart works inside of itself. My mentor likes to call them conundrums, but I like to call it creative tension, because I do think it's actually generative when we know how to work with it. So this is particularly true for this particular eclipse full moon, because the main gate that is being highlighted here is the gate 63. Now, the gate 63 in a traditional human design is known as doubt, and it's been renamed curiosity in quantum human design. So it is left brain energy. It's right here where the energy from super consciousness comes right in through this channel. It's really actually above the head, and it comes right in, and it's bringing in downloads and insights and potentials. All of the gates in the head are, right? They're all really plugged into super consciousness. They just have a different quality of energy about how they're doing that. So this one, like I said, is doubt or curiosity. Now you can just see right there, there's actually a tension between doubt and curiosity right there. And the traditional human design tends to be a little more negative in the form of its language. Ra Huruhu was the founder of human design, was really interested in unpacking the language of the not self. And so doubt really has to do with the not self, which is what his term for really kind of being out of alignment with what's true for us. Okay. And so when we switch it over to curiosity, you can see how much more opening that is. Doubt really kind of shuts things down. I doubt it. Prove it to me. Where's the research? Where's the studies? Where's the experts talking about that? I'm going to doubt it until you prove it to me, right? This is a pretty common way of thinking, certainly in Western culture. But if we instead go, I wonder what that's about. I wonder what is going on. How can I be curious to find out more, to be opening up to this way of knowing that's coming in that wants to share a message with me? How can I be curious about that rather than doubting? And this you can see right there is creative tension. So that's gate 63. As I said, it's that left brain energy, and it's the beginning of the logic circuit or the pattern circuit. And so it is logical, it's rational, it's analytical, it's reasonable, it's focal in its gaze. It's, really kind of this powerful moving forward kind of energy. And we need this kind of energy, right? We need our analytical brains, and we need to be able to, plan things and analyze things and strategize. All of those are left brain energies. The challenge is that we've been overly conditioned to believe that that's the only way of knowing anything is through that left brain energy. And, the scientific method, the Western scientific method lives here in the logic circuit. And so that's where that kind of doubt comes from, I want to see the studies that are going to prove that. But let's understand this is only one way of knowing. And when we dismiss everything else, we really diminish what's possible for us. And we move through the world in deficient, because in the human design system, there are three primary ways of knowing, and all three of them are being lit up during this particular full moon eclipse. And so we want to be able to embrace all of ourselves, all of our faculties, all of our intelligences. And that is exactly what this full moon is highlighting for us. And if we remember that eclipses are ways of, bringing more shadow over what we already know, but then when it moves away, it illuminates things that have been hidden from us. And I would like to suggest that part of what is being illuminated here are these other ways of knowing that have been kind of covered over, hidden, rejected, dismissed, not trusted inside of the primary mindset of Western culture, which, as I said, has really diminished us and has led us to move through the world in a deficient state, because we're only working with a third of the ways that we actually know what we know. So in the human design system, we've got, yes, the moon is in that gate 63, doubt, curiosity, but also the earth, because we track the earth in the human design system as opposed to astrology, which really doesn't. So those two are together and they're considered conjunct. But then opposite that is where the sun is. And so the sun is lighting up the gate 64. Well, it's interesting because the gate 64 is right brain energy. So we've got the 63 over here and the 64 over here, right? So we've got both left brain and right brain energies being lit up by the sun and the earth during this particular moon. And so we want to also honor the right brain energy. So right brain energy, it is experiential, it's creative, it's embodied, it's expansive, it's spiritual, and it's more like peripheral grace, like really expanded, whereas that left brain is much more focal. It's much more linear. And so we want to be able to honor that right brain of knowing, way of knowing as well. We can see some of this tension simply in the way that these gates have been named, because the 64 in traditional human design is known as confusion. Confusion. And in quantum human design, it's known as divine transference. And so if we think of the energies that come into the right brain as being confusing, because they're not logical, they're not rational, right? They're none of those things. And if you're trying to understand the world just with your left brain, the information that comes in through your right brain might be confusing. But if you can open up to its potential and the way that it really supports us instead, and you can really see how that divine transference is bringing in new potentials and possibilities that we actually can't really identify through our left brain. Now that 64 is even more potent because we have the entire channel of the 6447 being lit up during this particular transit, because the south node is in that gate 47. So we've got that whole channel going on here, right? And so we've got this access to our creative potential that sometimes our left brain doesn't really understand. So this is where we're getting this tension, right? Okay. And what we want to be able to do is, rather than having our left brain and right brain being like this, we want to have them be like, oh, you bring in this and I bring in this. And oh, you help me see that. And oh, you help me see that. And when I have all of this, I feel more whole. Right? I have two primary ways of knowing that are both active, and I can honor and access and cultivate them and have them be in right relationship with each other, rather than feeling that they are polarized and in conflict. Now, if you've been falling into polarized energy, which is rampant on our planet right now, there's so much conflict energy, so much polarization, right? This is an invitation for you to step out of that way of being and instead embrace polarities, right? Because our left brain and right brain are kind of polarities with each other. But how do we actually embrace them rather than thinking that they are in conflict or one is right and the other one is wrong? It's important to understand when we do that, like when we reject our right brain energy, we reject that form of inner knowing, we're really rejecting a part of ourselves, right? You're rejecting an aspect of who you are. You're rejecting, kind of your innate intelligence. And so we want to reclaim that. We want to reclaim our right brain way of knowing. We want to reclaim our creativity and our embodied knowing, our sensuality. So many things that are coming in through that right brain of knowing and the sensing circuit. The sensing circuit is the mirror of the logic circuit. They really go together. They're very dynamic when we allow them to be. The only reason that we struggle with that is because of conditioning. Really, because these are God-given rights to us, God-given attributes, and we want to be able to embrace all of us so that we can be more whole. It's important to understand you may not be as familiar with that right brain energy. You might be uncomfortable with it even because it's not familiar to you. We've all been so trained into this left brain dominance, right? Just to see things through strategy and analysis and the material world, what we can touch, right? It's all very logical. But that other part of you is a huge value for you when you're able to strip away that conditioning that says that it's not valuable, but it really is. This is an invitation to reclaim yourself, to reclaim your body, to reclaim your sensuality, to reclaim your lived experience. All of this lives in the sensing circuit. And so you want to be able to bring this in. But if you initially feel a little, uncertain or unfamiliar or uncomfortable, it's totally understandable. It doesn't mean, it's not a signal not to go there. Instead, it's a signal to dive in and cultivate that, explore, experiment, try things out, see how you can awaken this other aspect of who you are and have it to dance with your own intelligence in your left brain. And then on top of that, we have another channel that is being lit up during this particular lunation, okay? And so that is the 2057. Okay, Mars is in the 57 and Uranus is in the 20. So this whole channel is being lit up. It is individual circuitry. It is here to be different. It's here to bring change. It does not fit in. It's where the evolutionary impulse of humanity runs through the human design chart. So this is going to be defining, like I have an open throat It's defining my throat. This is going to be defining my spleen. And actually that 4764 is going to be defining the head and the ajna for everyone during this particular transit. And so we've got a lot of definition going on that may not be usual for you. But this one is particularly lighting up that spleen and lighting up the throat through individual circuitry. And that 57 can be a huge ally for you. It's known as instinct or intuition. And it can fall into the fear of the future because all of the gates on the spleen can fall into instinctual fears. But when you can let go of that fear of the future, you can open up your intuition. You just want to make sure that you give it enough time so that you can get really clear. Is it the right time, right? And not just barrel forward with something because you get an idea, right? Or you get an impulse in the inside. You really want to make sure that it's right timing because the spleen is the center for right timing. And because it is instinctual and it can fall into fear, you want to make sure you give yourself enough time to know what's really, really accurate for you. And there's an ally here in the gate 20, which is known as patience in quantum human design, right? So it's there to be able to say, okay, let's have patience to know what is happening really with this energy. And so it does define the throat here. It doesn't motorize it because the spleen is not a motor, but it does help us to be able to express our intuitive intuitions that we have. So this is bringing in yet another way of knowing, which is our intuition, which is what lives in individual circuitry and in particular in the knowing circuit. And so this 5720 is in the knowing circuit. So we want to be able to honor it, not judge it, right? Or reject it because it's not going to be logical or rational or analytical or strategic. It's none of those things. It lives in another realm, just like that right brain energy lives in a different realm. These are all three different ways of knowing that are lit up and that are defined for us in the human design system. There's our logic, left brain. There's our creativity and embodiment, right brain. And then there is the knowing circuit, which is highly, highly intuitive. All individual circuitry is highly intuitive. And so as we're working with this, again, you want to be able to access and cultivate that intuitive knowing for yourself as well. So we've got a lot going on here. You can see we've got all three ways of knowing, primary ways of knowing in the human design system. And so they're being lit up during this eclipse. And it's possible that your intuition is something that has also been covered over or has been rejected or has been dismissed. And you want to reclaim it. You want to access it. You want to cultivate it. You want to bring it in here as well. And the mission, if you will, is how do we get all of these different ways of knowing, all of the different aspects of ourselves to come into right relationship with us so that they can be interdependent rather than feeling like they're in conflict with each other. Because the thing is that the way we've been conditioned, that left brain can kind of beat up on our intuition, right? It can beat up on our creativity and say, none of that's really all that important, right? You know, it's really not that significant. And yet human design teaches us and shows us that it really, really is. And this moon, this eclipse is showing that super powerfully. And then there's another factor that is mitigating the kind of dominance of the left brain in the gate 63. And that has to do with the north node, which is in the gate 22. So in this image, you can see that the 22 is right next to the gate 63. This would be considered conjunct in astrology. And so you can see here, we've got the earth and the moon in the gate 63. And then we've got right next to it, Uranus in the gate 22. And the gate 22 is known as openness in traditional human design or surrender in quantum human design. And it is in the knowing circuit. It's individual circuitry. It's highly intuitive. It's here to be different. It's here to bring change. It does not fit in. And so the invitation here is, how do we surrender, our intuition How do we surrender this is also highly emotional. How do we surrender our emotions to kind of our higher faculties? Because the knowing circuit is about bringing in epiphanies, possibilities, potentials, right? That's what the knowing circuit is all about. And so that is going to be animating this gate 22 as well. And so the North Node, let's remember, is what we're moving into. Right? It's our destiny. It's where we're moving in the second half of life in an individual's chart. But for us right here, it's for how are we moving into our destiny collectively. And the North Node is saying we're doing it by surrendering to our intuition. We're surrendering our left brain ways of knowing. And we are instead embracing that we have an intuitive ability to know what's right for us when we go inside and we tap in and we listen and we cultivate that. And we continue to decondition the ways that culture has taught us that this is not a valid way of knowing. It's not a valid way to make decisions. For example, right? We want to keep stripping away that conditioning because we want to be more whole. We want our intuition. We want our creativity as well as our logic and our reason and our analysis. So one way to think about this is how are we moving beyond that left brain dominance? Right? How are we moving beyond it? What is it that we can move towards? Now, wherever your North Node is, it may be less familiar to you, right? It's what you're moving towards. And so for us, we may not be so familiar with a world that is really orchestrated by intuition, for example, or really orchestrated by creativity. It's not something we know really well here in the Western world, like not at all. Right? And so it might feel uncomfortable. We might be like, I'm not so sure I want to do that. Right? And yet that is what the North Node really calls us into. I mean, I know I've been working with my personal North Node in my astrology chart and in my human design chart. And I realize there's parts of it that are really unfamiliar to me. I've been really practicing cultivating the qualities of where my North Node is. I've been really kind of more familiar with, but also attached to where my South Node is because it's conjunct my Sun in Aries. And that's way more familiar to me. And for me to be moving into Libra, which is where my North Node is just not as familiar to me. So I mention this just to say that it might be something that you sort of like, I'm not sure, but this is why surrender, right? Surrender to this and also ask for help from your inner being to help you to be able to cultivate your ability to hear the messages that your inner being or your wise one within, what I like to call your sovereign self, is really sharing with you and wanting to guide you with. But your analytical brain, if you let your analytical brain be too dominant, you won't be able to hear what's going on in the inner landscape. So you really want to be able to open up to all of your potential, all of your faculties, all of your intelligences, and then learn how to help them dance with each other ecstatically, ideally. And the best choice challenge that I mentioned to you at the beginning of the video really grows out of this recognition that our destiny depends on our ability to access and grow our inner guidance, our intuition, our relationship with the wise one within, that we cannot go on living out of left brain dominance. Left brain dominance is part of what has led to us really devastating our world in a lot of ways because we don't recognize its value, right? We diminish it. We dismiss it. This is a legacy that we have from the age of reason, which we are evolving out of, but are deeply kind of embedded in our psyche. But human design shows us that all of our authorities, all of our best way of making decisions for ourselves, our best ways of making choices, they're all intuitive. And so the North Node here lighting up the gate of, this highly intuitive gate in the knowing circuit is saying to us, this is where our destiny is. And so for our best choices challenge, we're going to learn how to access and cultivate our own inner knowing. And there's nothing more important right now than being able to make the right choices for ourselves. And because we need to know where we are directing our attention and our energy, because these are our most valuable resources. The things we've been taught by common culture are really like money is not your most valuable resource, right? Your attention, your energy are the most valuable things that you have. And so if you're just channeling it just through your left brain, you're diminishing yourself radically. And when you can channel your energy and your attention by having all of these different attributes of you available and online and ready to help you, you become more whole and you kind of become more like a superhuman, because this is actually our birthright. And it's something we have been conditioned away from. And people who only live out of left brain dominance are actually much more easily controlled. We're more easily manipulated. We're more easily channeled into things that the overculture wants us to pay attention to and not the things that it doesn't. And when you activate and cultivate these other aspects of you, you reclaim your power. You liberate yourself from that conditioning, and instead you grow your own inner power. And that, my friend, is a central aspect of the new earth, which we are purposely right now co-creating. So if that lights you up, if that stimulates you, if that makes you excited, then I hope that you'll come and join us for the Best Choices Challenge. The link is down below. It's happening September 22nd to the 26th, and I hope to connect with you during that time. All right, my friends, many, many blessings. Much love. See you soon in another video.